Hey everybody, it's Jesse, and I want to talk to you a little bit about my job search. So, about a month, maybe a month and a half ago, I decided I wanted to find a new job. So, it started out with me just putting out a tweet that said I was open to new opportunities, and I explained, hey, I'm a developer, a JavaScript developer. I'm into React, and please retweet this. And over the course of a few days, I ended up getting 200 retweets and some really good recommendations from some other developers, and uh, I even started to get contacted by recruiters. So I started replying to some of the recruiters and setting up our initial interviews. And the initial interviews, when that happens, are usually just like a phone call, a very informal phone call, and no technical questions or anything. Basically, they just want to know, who are you, what do you like to work on, and what are you interested in doing. And they also want to tell you a little bit about their company and that particular opportunity to see if you're interested. So I started setting these up. I was reached out to by some pretty big companies. So Google, Eventbrite, Dick's Sporting Goods, SAP, um, actually Microsoft, through one of their like child companies, and at the same time I started applying for jobs. So I used LinkedIn. I signed up for LinkedIn Premium so I could get some of that extra benefits of knowing what salary ranges were, and being able to direct message people at a company. Stack Overflow Jobs, Indeed, and I signed up, on all those services for the automatic emails to just let me know what jobs were available in my area. So primarily, I was looking for jobs in the Pittsburgh area, so that I wouldn't have to move, and I was also looking for remote jobs. But I was open, depending on the opportunity, for jobs where I would have to relocate. So I started applying for everything that I could find that I was interested in, and even remotely qualified for. And I made use of the quick apply feature wherever they had it. So if you haven't used quick apply, it's like you already have your information and your resume uploaded to that particular platform. And so really with one or two clicks, you can send off an application. So it doesn't work with every job. Some jobs have a much more thorough application process, but it's really great to be able to apply to a lot of places at once. So I did that, and I was applying every day. I would apply to a few more jobs. If I had more time, it would be more like 10 jobs. Sometimes it would just be one or two. But I kept applying throughout the whole process. I started to get calls back for technical interviews. So at that point, I decided to be kind of more serious about studying. So I was recommended the book Cracking the Coding Interview, and so started reading through that book. It was really helpful in terms of understanding what interviewers want from this process, what they're really looking to find out, and I I did study a lot of the data structure and algorithm questions, and those ended up not being as helpful because I'm a front end developer. So the questions that I got were more related to DOM manipulation and API calls and things like that. So I probably didn't need to spend as much time as I did on the data structures and algorithms, but all the techniques for approaching technical interview questions were very helpful. So I would still recommend that book, but if you're a front end person, maybe you could stand to skip over some of those other sections. Probably would have helped me more if I would have spent more time just doing some JavaScript, basic JavaScript problems. Maybe just building out some basic web apps with vanilla JavaScript or something. That maybe would have been helpful. And not only building it out, but building it out on a whiteboard, right? Because I'm not used to that, but I did have to do that for some of the interviews. So overall, though, I did learn a lot from what I was reading. I made sure that I was constantly listening to podcasts that talked about technical things like data structures and algorithms. So there's a podcast called the Base CSS podcast, or I'm sorry, Base CS, not CSS, that talks about a lot of data structure and algorithm problems. So if you're full stack or back end, that'll definitely be helpful. Not as much for front end, but still learned a lot. So I started to get rejection letters, which definitely happens, so rejection emails, but I also started to get moved on to technical interviews. So I did some technical interviews for Eventbrite, for Dick's Sporting Goods, for Google, for SAP Concur. I had an interview with a startup in Pittsburgh called Farm Jenny, and I think, what, I did have some interviews. I had interviews with Screen.io, that's out of Paris, France. Um, Frame.io out of New York City. So those were the companies that I can remember that I did these interviews with. And some companies send you right into the technical interview, usually over like a video chat. Sometimes they have a take-home problem, and they'll give you like a week or two to do it. So the order of those, may be switched. Some companies don't give you a take-home at all, but it seems like everybody wants that initial technical interview. If you get past that technical interview, you get past the take-home problem, then usually you go through a round of interviews. So in my case, it was a whole day of technical interviews, so usually 4 or 5. So that could be done either in person or through video chat. So the first set of interviews that I went through like that was for Dick's Sporting Goods. It's only about a 30-minute drive from where I live right now. So I went through all the interviews, and got a really good feeling about it. I went in expecting that I wouldn't like it, honestly, because of the technology described in the job description didn't seem like something I was that interested in. But I ended up being very interested in what they were doing. So that taught me a lesson. Like, okay, maybe don't discount companies even if the job description doesn't sound great. It's still worth it, because what was actually happening there was so much more exciting than what the job description made it sound like. So I made it through those interviews, and I actually got an offer, I think, the next day. That was a good offer. It was I knew the salary range for Pittsburgh, and it was definitely at the upper end of the salary range that I was considering to be a good salary. So that was a great offer, but I was still in the interview process with other companies. So I told them I'm really interested, but I need some time to hear back from these other companies. So the next round of technical interviews was from SAP Concur, and they're based out of, well, SAP is a huge company that owns a lot of other companies, but this particular branch of SAP was based out of Seattle, Washington. So I wasn't gonna fly all the way out there. I did 5, I believe it was 5 video interviews in the course of a day, and those went really well, and I ended up getting an offer from them too, which was also a good offer. It was comparable to the offer from Dick's Sporting Goods, and the big bonus was that it was completely remote. Dick's Sporting Goods, I would have to go in every day to an office. This offer, I could work from anywhere. So that was really cool, and so now I had 2 offers that I was trying to decide between. And at that point, I reached out to other companies. Um, and let them know. I had actually reached out right after the Dick's Sporting Goods offer, and I let all the other companies know that I had a shortened timeline, and I really wanted to try to get those interviews in. So it was basically like, hey, if you're still interested in me, I just want to let you know I need to make a decision sooner than I thought. And all the companies were very responsive to that, and they rearranged schedules to be able to interview me sooner than they had anticipated. So my next interview was with a company called Farm Jenny, that's a startup. So they're also in Pittsburgh. The commute for that position was over an hour each way. So significantly longer commute, and I would have been the first technical hire. So it was just kind of like a day long like conversation. You get to see what they're working on. I got to ask a lot of questions. It's very informal. We went out to lunch, but that was a great opportunity as well. The I can't say what they were working on, but uh, it was really cool. It would have been really interesting, and the salary was a lot less than the other positions, but the equity was significant. And so the equity would have been the share in the company that I would actually own. So potentially, let's say in like 5 years, if they were to get bought out by a bigger company, or if they were to go public, do like an IPO, that could have been worth a lot more. So I mean, it's hard to estimate this, but an okay estimate would have been maybe like the equity alone would have been worth maybe $500,000 after 5 years. And so that I was really considering that opportunity. So at that point, I had also heard back from Google, and they wanted to fly me out to Mountain View, California, to do interviews, 5 interviews in one day there on their Mountain View campus, and that's their headquarters. So I let all the other companies know that I needed a little bit of extra time to get back to them because I was going to fly out for Google. So I flew out there. I went through the interviews. They went. I thought they went pretty well. It was. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this video will get too long. But if you're interested in that, the whole Google interviews, let me know. Maybe I can do a video on that too. But I ended up not getting an offer from Google, okay? And but before I heard back from Google, I got a call from the recruiter from Dick's Sporting Goods, and I was very honest with her and saying that it's really hard for me to decide. I have some good offers, and at that point, it was between the offer from SAP Concur and the offer from Dick's Sporting Goods. The startup, I think if I would have been single, the startup maybe I would have gone with. But because I'm married, I have 4 kids, I wanted something more stable. Um, so I decided to go with the bigger companies. And I honestly told her that I was having a lot of trouble deciding. And I was talking to everybody that I could. And I, I, I couldn't figure out what I wanted, right? And she said that they had been talking more about it, her and the team, and they made me an even better offer than their first offer. And that really kind of was the tiebreaker for me, right? It wasn't all about money, but given 2 jobs that I was really interested in technology wise, I needed something that would set one up above the other. Okay, and the other position had already said that they couldn't go higher. So that was it. That was a deciding factor. But I still needed to hear back from Google. So I let the recruiter from Dick's know that I'm 99% sure that I'm going to go with this offer, but I still want to hear back from Google, right? Because it's Google, and to have Google on your resume is almost like a ticket to work anywhere else because it's so notoriously difficult to get into Google. Other employers will know that if you got in and worked there, you must be good. So they're more willing to give you a chance. So I heard back from the Google recruiter a little bit, later on, like that night, and found out that I did not get the position. which I was so happy for the experience, right? There was almost very little disappointment there because I had already gotten such a great offer, um, that I was just excited about that. So it worked out well that I wasn't really too disappointed. Um, and so I immediately texted the recruiter from Dick's Sporting Goods and told her, like, hey, I'm gonna accept. So I ended up accepting that offer, and I'm gonna start my new position as a senior software engineer at Dick's Sporting Goods tomorrow. So the entire process was very surprising and fun and challenging, and I learned a lot. I got to talk to a lot of great people at a lot of great companies, and it was probably the biggest surprises out of the whole process were, number one, how important Twitter is, and number two, how how desirable I had become as a candidate. I didn't realize, in since the last time I was looking for a job 3 years ago, there's just a huge difference between the interest that companies had in me, and my skills. So I would say, my advice to you if you're looking for a job is use your social media. It turns out that all the biggest offers that I got, I didn't even apply for those jobs. It was recruiters that reached out to me through Twitter. Um, and even most of the interviews that I got, even if I didn't get an offer, were all recruiters that reached out to me through Twitter. I applied for dozens and dozens of jobs, just by sending in a resume, filling out an application, and I got rejected from almost all of them, or I didn't hear back at all. Um, I lost track of how many rejections I got. I'm still getting rejections every day, in emails, right? But being able to have someone recommend you on Twitter and to get the response that I did of over 200 retweets, really stands out to a recruiter as more so than just a resume was. Some of these positions, like at Google, I had applied directly to Google before, and I never even got an interview. Right? Even maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, I had applied directly to Google. Nothing. Um, I don't know that I would even gotten an interview at Dick's Sporting Goods if it was just a resume. So if you haven't already, get on Twitter, build up your network, right? Make if you want to have your own personal Twitter, that's fine. Make a professional Twitter, but follow people in the industry. Um, a lot of the people that gave me really great recommendations on Twitter were people that I had spoken to at conferences. So go to conferences, do your networking, and make sure that you follow each other on Twitter, and you keep up with what's going on. I don't even post a lot of original content on Twitter. It's just mainly congratulating other people, retweeting when they have questions or are looking for a job or something. So in general, just trying to be as helpful and as friendly as I can. It doesn't take up that much time, really. So that's my journey, in this job search. So hopefully this was somewhat helpful or interesting to some of you. And if you're interested in any specific parts and you want to hear more about it, let me know in the comments or on social media. So I am on Twitter. I'm also pretty active on Instagram, and so you can DM me on either one of those social networks. If you like this kind of video and you want more, like, subscribe. Maybe I can do more of this kind of thing. And if you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again soon in another video.